In 1964, the desegregation of Jonesboro, Louisiana High School was threatened by local authorities with fire hoses. 4 armed black men arrived with loaded shotguns. Without firing a shot, the mob dispersed and the authorities retreated. The students entered the school without incident. Those men were members of the Deacons for Defense, an armed citizens militia founded in Jonesboro, Louisiana. The Deacons were everyday citizens who by 1965 had organized into more than 50 chapters throughout the South in self-defense from the Ku Klux Klan.
In 1964, down in Louisiana, there were all types of demonstrations going on by freedom riders. Many times, the demonstrations would be met by armed white resistance. People were dying and being shot and intimidated because they were unarmed. And basically, because they were unarmed, they were also being denied the right to vote.
The Deacons protected civil rights workers for CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, who were registering voters in Louisiana and Mississippi. They patrolled black neighborhoods and protected black churches where CORE was holding voting rights seminars.
These were regular, everyday people. They were not some paramilitary group. The thing that made them different is they were veterans from the Korean War. They were veterans from World War II. And so they did have the training and they did have the discipline that came from being veterans. Once the Klansman and the white citizen consular and the deputy sheriff that was wearing the sheet at night learned that these Deacons for Defense would shoot back, then they were not as readily willing to go and pounce upon them in the wee hours of the morning.
Are you going to do something about it?
Because now...
Welcome to a special Saturday edition to You Left Shit Out. I'm your host, Compton J. What's up, everybody? We're going to be getting into the topic in just a second, but let's do a chat check really quick. Let's see who's in here. What's up, everybody? Alrighty. All right, so I think that's a good amount. We'll do that quick chat check. And also, let's make sure we get those likes up. I'm laughing because I just saw Sabby or Sabrina do an impression of me when on the Sabby and JB show. She posted a clip or sent a clip. I don't know if she posted it. Where she did a funny imitation of me, and I was like, that's spot on. So 42 likes, good amount to start with. Let's keep those climbing, and let's say just saying hey to everybody. And Zoya is here to moderate. Hopefully you're not needed as much. I don't think this conversation is going to get too crazy. But for those that were pushed here from Twitter, let's show you some of the things. So I love this video. It talks about deacons of defense or deacons for defense. And I think that is the way to protect communities. I think that's a better way to protect your community, our communities. It's a citizen-based sort of defense instead of a police state. So let's go to a couple of the graphics here, and then I'll show you a couple of the videos. But so I was just casually on a Saturday watching some content that I hadn't watched, and it was the episode or stream. I think I have it right here. Yeah, the stream on Bad Faith podcast with Brianna Joy Gray. Shout out BJG. What's up? The interview she did with Chris Hedges and Kshama Sawant. And the title of the video is "Should the Left Primary Joe Biden with Chris Hedges and Kshama Sawant?" It was, I don't know why I always miss the date here. But anyway, this video, so I was watching it and just saw some, when it got to the question about 20-minute mark, where it was clear that her two guests, Brianna's two guests, weren't about the Democratic Party in any way that she was trying to describe it. Anyway, when we get there, I'll give you more of my critique, or more of my assessment. It's a better way of saying it. So, first graphic: never run as a Democrat ever. I think that graphic self-explanatory. And then what's the other graphic here? Also, in watching this content, I found one thing. Maybe I'd heard of it, maybe it didn't stick with me. I found out that Bernie Sanders told Kshama and Chris, in response to running as an independent, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader. So that so clarifies to me why Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race without saying anything to his supporters. It just left them high and dry. And it explains AOC and the squad. They're not revolutionary. They're not the type that says, yes, treat it like Ralph Nader, bring that shit on. They're not that. So that was something I learned. Anyway, let's go to the next one. And then I posted some clips along with these from that content. The clips are where we're going to kind of be starting in that segment of the video. And then there's this graphic here. Progressive challenger to Biden can't be Democrat. Can't be a progressive Democrat. That's what they argue in the video. That's actually what we argue here on RBN. I think, yeah, every single person on RBN. So yeah. Is there another one? I think that might be it. But let's listen to a snippet before we get into the depths of the interview. Let's listen to a snippet here. A second. Oh yeah, I got it. So this is the first snippet. I think BJG retweeted this one. Let's listen.
There absolutely should be a progressive challenger from the left in a militant campaign. I absolutely don't think it should be from the Democratic Party. And I do want to address the specific names that you brought up. But before doing that, I want to say it's much more about the strategy, the political strategy that we as working people use to bring a real challenge to the Democratic and Republican candidates. And the starting point, the ABCs of that strategy are: you don't run as a Democrat. Because look at what they did to Bernie.
That's the foundation. She's saying, like, this is like the 101 class for those university students, college students. This is the prerequisite. Like, I mean, are we starting from reality? Is basically what she's saying. Are we starting from reality? And the reality is we can't start from the Democratic Party. If we're being serious, we can't start there. And it's very curious to me, the back and forth that happens during this conversation. And we'll get to that in just a second here. But let's continue with this part, at least.
To Bernie Sanders, every Tom, Dick, and Harry of progressive Democrats supported Bernie in 2020. They were, when I went to the Tacoma Dome to speak at Bernie's rally, they were all there with me. I know these people. They don't support Bernie's politics, but they were there because it was so easy. There was nothing at stake to get on the Bernie bandwagon at that time, and yet then go ahead and support Biden once Bernie was crushed, because we all knew that was going to happen. The Democratic Party elite were going to use some trick or another to get Bernie off the books. And then you got James Clyburn, you got South Carolina, and lo and behold, it happened. We didn't know exactly how it would happen, but we knew it would happen. So the first obligation we have as people on the left, if we are serious organizers, if we have any loyalty to the working class, is to first be crystal clear about that. Whether it makes you popular or not, be crystal clear. The Democratic Party is not the way to go. And I don't want to hear, these things that people come up with on the left where they'll say, well, it's the ballot line, it's a technicality. No, this is no technicality. This is, if you don't run as an independent, you are not taking on the fight that needs to be taken on, which is to present an independent fight back. And if you don't, Bernie was the strongest expression so far of the burning desires that working people have. And I have a lot of appreciation for Bernie, but look what happened. It went nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to play that again just to kind of break down each point that she makes here. But I think she sums it up in the end is that the bottom line is this: you can't be in the apparatus if you're trying to take down the apparatus. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, they don't demolish a building with people, you know what I'm saying? Like, no. So if we want to demolish the building, hang on, I'm getting some feedback here. Kind of threw me off. Right. So if we want to demolish, damn, I forgot the point that I was making. Demolish the building. Oh yeah. So the building is the Democratic establishment. So if we're saying we're trying, see, this is, so some people may not be saying that. I just realized that. Some people may not be saying we're trying to demolish this building. There are reformists who are saying, no, let's not demolish this building we call the Democratic Party. Let's just improve it. Let's make it better. So maybe that's where there is the where people diverge. So let's listen again and for each specific point.
There absolutely should be a progressive challenger from the left in a militant campaign. I absolutely don't think it should be from the Democratic.
Now, I tried to stop it before. Militant campaign. This is what we've been preaching also on RBN. Like, literally those words has been mentioned in several of our streams where we're saying militant, a militant campaign.
Democratic Party. And I do want to address the specific names that you brought up. But before doing that, I want to say it's much more about the strategy.
And the names she brought up were like Nina Turner, AOC, specifically Nina Turner and Miriam Williamson as far as running for president.
The political strategy that we as working people use to bring a real challenge to the Democratic and Republican candidates. And the starting point, the ABCs of that strategy are you don't run as a Democrat. Because look at what they did to Bernie Sanders.
I know Bree is trying not to have a tail in some of these answers, but I can clearly see a tail in her face sometimes. And she practiced really hard because I can tell.
Right.
Because it's the same sort of training with actors. In my past life, I've executive producer, worked with actors, director, writer. That's sort of our family's background is in entertainment. So I'm saying I know somebody who's worked on it and somebody like when I look at her old content. So it's not a critique that because I try the same thing. I used to always look in a certain point and then I started making sure I was looking somewhere else. So it's not a critique at all. I'm just simply saying I know when there's a tell and when she responds and when she says it absolutely when the prerequisite absolutely like 101, the 101 class cannot run as a Democrat. There's a tell there.
Don't run as a Democrat because look at what they did. the starting point, the ABCs of that strategy are you don't run as a Democrat. Because look at what they did to
Right
Bernie
there.
Sanders. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry of progressive Democrats supported Bernie in 2020. They were, when I went to the Tacoma Dome to speak at Bernie's rally, they were all there with me. I know these people. They don't support Bernie's politics, but
these two are basically saying the same thing that RBN comes under fire for. Like, what these specific two people, when they're talking about electoral politics and the adversarial approach outside of the Democratic Party, they have the same ideology. These two here, or we have the same as them. However you want to phrase it. Now we articulated from with a proletariat voice or through a proletariat voice, so it's not going to be smooth. It's going to be very rough and raw without the polite language. But these two articulated more professionally for the managerial class, but they're saying the same exact thing. They're saying the same exact thing that we've been saying. So let's finish this clip here.
But they were there because it was so easy. There was nothing at stake to get on the Bernie bandwagon at that time, and yet then go ahead and support Biden once Bernie was crushed, because we all knew that was going to happen. The Democratic Party elite were going to use some trick or another to get Bernie off the books. And then you got James Clyburn, you got South Carolina, and lo and behold, it happened. We didn't know exactly how it would happen, but we knew it would happen. So the first obligation we have as people on the left, if we are serious organizers, if we have any loyalty to the working class, is to first be crystal clear about that, whether it makes you popular.
Like this part right here, if we are a friend of the working class, there's one thing we have to get clear. Like she's saying, like this is like the foundation here.
How it would happen, but we knew it would happen. So the first obligation we have as people on the left, if we are serious organizers, if we have any loyalty to the working class, is to first be crystal clear about that, whether it makes you popular or not. Be crystal clear. The Democratic Party is not the way to go. And
this small 15-second section here is so very important to me. So let's rewind it again here.
The first obligation we have as people on the left, if we are serious organizers, if we have any loyalty to the working class, is to first be crystal clear about that, whether it makes you popular or not. Be crystal clear. The Democratic Party is not the way to go. And I don't want to hear these things that people come up with on the left, where they'll say, well, it's the ballot line, it's a technicality. No, this is no technicality. This is, if you don't run as an independent.
Yes, the ballot line, the technicality. She's talking about, when they say, that's a D+1, that's a D+7, that's a D+30. No, fuck all of that shit, is what Kshama is saying. No, fuck that. Love it. Like I said, I don't see anyone other than Kshama Sawant who's in politics, who's an elected person, who is a person is even running, who's speaking in the way that is accurate or adequate for the time that we're living in. It feels like everybody else is underwhelming. Everybody else feels like, man, you need to turn that shit up a little bit. It doesn't feel that way when I'm listening to her. It feels like she's pinpointing what we should be doing in the tactics and how we should be having an approach. So when I hear her, so let's see if I can finish this out now. It's like another 30 seconds, 25 seconds.
Popular or not, be crystal clear. The Democratic Party is not the way to go. And I don't want to hear, these things that people come up with on the left, where they'll say, well, it's the ballot line, it's a technicality. No, this is no technicality. This is, if you don't run as an independent, you are not taking on the fight that needs to be taken.
Right. This is what we're saying. If you are not running outside of the duopoly, you are not addressing the fight that needs to be taken on. If you're not running outside of duopoly, you're not addressing climate change. I'm sorry if that's what you want to talk yourself into believing. But if you're running as a Democrat, progressive Democrat, yelling climate change at the top of your lungs, you're not really challenging that narrative, the narrative of us doing something. You're not challenging it. You're cozying up to part of the problem, saying, hey, will you let me in? Will you give me some committee assignments so I can save the fucking planet? Does that sound like a serious strategy to you? Because it doesn't to me. It surely does not to me. Sounds like a don't bring up climate change and then follow that up by let's elect some progressive Democrats. I can't take you seriously. I can't take you seriously. Do we not know what Joe Biden has approved? Now, we can say all you want as your response that a court system had to stop him from all the permits he approved, but the guy approved it. The climate president. So, got another clip. Yeah, let's just play the clips first, and then we'll get into the deep dive of the chat that they had. Okay, so this one they speaking about Bernie Sanders. So I'll read the what I wrote here. Kshama and Chris Hedges was with Bernie Sanders on his campaign. Kshama pushed Bernie to run as an independent. Bernie knows the cost of crossing the Dem party, and he doesn't want to pay it, which has become crystal clear for most of us after this last run during the pandemic. And that's a quote, Bernie, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader. So let's listen to this clip. This is Chris Hedges. I need to pause that. Let's see what that is here. I mean, mute that my phone. So let's listen to Chris speak here.
No, I agree with Kshama. And in fact, Kshama and I were with Bernie the night before the climate march in New York City. This was back in, what was it, Kshama, 2016, I think.
It was 2014, actually.
14. And Kshama was pushing Bernie to run as an independent. And it was fascinating to me that Bernie responded by saying, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader. And what he was really saying is, I don't want to be destroyed by the Democratic Party establishment. So Bernie has always been circumscribed by the parameters of the Democratic Party. He caucuses as a Democrat. And let me remind listeners that Dennis Kucinich, who is a Democrat, was forbidden from caucusing with the Democrats by Pelosi. And then the Democratic establishment redrew or gerrymandered his district to drive him out of the House of Representatives. So Bernie knows the cost, and he doesn't want to pay it. He was campaigning for Clinton in '96. This was after NAFTA, after the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill. He knows what the Democrats are about, and that's why he will not confront the Democratic Party establishment, because he doesn't want to end up like Ralph Nader.
And so to answer the question for those, Bernie in 2024, no. Again, we need a candidate that is adequate or appropriate for the time, and it's past Bernie's time. We all can see crystal clear that the movement is not the top priority for him. Staying in the good graces of the Democratic establishment is the highest priority for Bernie Sanders. That excludes him for being appropriate for this moment. So Bernie Sanders 2024 is a joke. And I mean, I keep seeing Marianne Williamson's name. Can we please just leave that dumb shit alone? And it is the managerial class that has brought this idea up. I'm talking about Kyle. I'm talking about Crystal Ball. I'm talking about Brianna. I'm talking about Katie Halper. Enough. Marianne Williamson is terrible. Terrible. Stop pushing her as a possible target. She is less. Bernie is not adequate, and she's not even a quarter of Bernie. So let's continue with the video.
Of Nader, those are his own words. And let me just go back to the issue of strikes. General strikes are largely organized to bring down regimes. That's what happened in Iran with the Shoah. That's what happened in Cuba with Batista. They are economic weapons because, of course, they will cripple the country. But their objective is usually the political overthrow of a regime. And so calling for general strikes is the late stage of the confrontation with power. What we have to focus on are the strikes by coal workers and Kellogg workers and Starbucks workers and Amazon workers. And that's where the energy has to go now, built around very specific economic and labor demands. That's where the energy has to go.
What do you think of that strategy? Or what do you think of that assessment of the energy? Like we're in a point in history that's going to be it's going to be a big point in history with the pandemic, with the war, with the inflation, with the number of deaths from the pandemic, with the presidency of Donald Trump, Russia. Like this is a very all the police killings that's at the forefront, defund the police, George Floyd that triggered a worldwide protest. So we can't have these regular answers as if this is 1998, or for those who are like younger, as if this is 2006 or 2007 during that campaign. This is not this. This is not that. So people like Marianne Williamson, maybe they would have been adequate in 2007. They would have been like, wow, she's great in 2007, not 2022. And I would say not even in 2016. Stop the ridiculousness of that person being a possibility. Now let's listen and break down.
No, I agree with Kshama. And
any part, did I break down? Yeah,
in fact, Kshama and I were with Bernie the night before the climate march in New York City.
So I listened to the whole thing. Now I want to listen point by point and break it down.
This was back in, what was it, Kshama, 2016, I think.
It was 2014, actually.
14. And Kshama was pushing Bernie to run as an independent. And it was fast.
Just think about that. So what is it that we've always talked about, or we've talked about a lot on social media platforms? All of them. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. Man, if only Bernie Sanders ran for the Green Party. If only Bernie Sanders weren't third party as an independent. We now know, or we've known, we know this content, but we know that these two people here are witnesses, or the actual person who said, hey, Bernie, run third party. Bernie had millions of dollars in the bank. Bernie could have ran third party and been fine. Would have been on the debate stage because he had enough money in the bank to make sure that happened. And he said, no. but we want Bernie again. Bernie is so 2016. So stop it with Bernie too. It was funny because the two people they were debating, now just think about the class of people. Actually, that's a different way. Think about, that is right. Think about who's pushing these people. The managerial class, the approved class, certainly not RBN. Pushing Bernie Sanders, a person who we know is not going to fight for the lowest at the bottom because he's not revolutionary. But that's okay for the managerial class because their student loan debt and their health care, okay. But the structural change that's needed for the proletariat is not going to happen. It doesn't affect the managerial class. So they're fine with pushing Bernie and Marianne Williamson as some sort of great alternative, some sort of radical alternative, some sort of adequate alternative for this moment. And I just think that's laughable. Let's continue with Chris.
Fascinating to me that Bernie responded by saying, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader.
What does that say about Bernie, though? What does it say about Bernie where he's telling us we need a movement of people to force the hand? He's telling us, but he's not willing to do the same thing. You see how all the politicians, you see how nothing getting done. I'm just thinking of this, putting this together. People want to do one thing, vote, and then sit back and let one person do all the work. And politicians are saying, no, the people, y'all got me in office. Now, in order for me to get me to do what you want, you need to organize and do work. Isn't that what AOC is saying? So everybody's telling the other side, you do the work. Bernie Sanders, the candidacy of Bernie Sanders, Marianne Williamson, Nina Turner, as presidents, as challengers to Biden, is simply not adequate for this time. Two of the people I would vote for in any other case. I wouldn't vote for Marianne Williamson under any circumstance because she's a neocon. What we have allowed the white left to define as leftism, all encompassing all the things that affect all the things. Oh, what's the left? Oh, because she asked Marianne Williamson in a different interview, what are some of your litmus tests? Oh, Medicare for all. Oh, $15 minimum wage. Oh, nothing about the police state. Nothing about none of this stuff. The core of leftism, the first thing you should be trying to say when you're describing leftism is the liberation of all oppressed people by the police state, the military state. Your weakest point can't be foreign policy, in my opinion. Moving forward, that can't be your weakest point no more. Let's continue with Chris.
And what he was really saying is, I don't want to be destroyed by the Democratic Party establishment. So Bernie has always been circumscribed by the parameters of the Democratic Party. He caucuses as a Democrat. And let me remind listeners that Dennis Kucinich, who is a Democrat, was forbidden from caucusing with the Democrats by Pelosi. And then the Democratic establishment redrew or gerrymandered his district to drive him out of the House of Representatives. So Bernie knows the cost, and he doesn't want to pay it. He was campaigning for Clinton in '96. This was after NAFTA, after the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill. He knows what the Democrats are about, and that's why he will not confront the Democratic Party establishment, because he doesn't want to end up like Ralph Nader. Those are his own words.
I mean, is that the type of candidate we need right now? When we have millions on the verge of eviction, we have millions. Stop using food insecurity. We have millions starving. Let's stop using the soft language. We have millions starving, and it's almost laughable to me just to think about it, that we're still on this progressive Democrat thing. But it needs to be talked about and talked about and talked about and addressed over and over, apparently. So let's continue.
And let me just go back to the issue of strikes. General strikes are largely organized to bring down regimes. That's what happened in Iran with the Shah. That's what happened in Cuba with Batista. They are economic weapons because, of course, they will cripple the country. But their objective is usually the political overthrow of a regime. And so calling for general strikes is the late stage of the confrontation with power. What we have to focus on are the strikes by coal workers and Kellogg workers and Starbucks workers and Amazon workers, and that's where the energy has to go now.
So he's saying the calls for general strikes, we're not there yet. Right now, the energy is with these strikes. Like these strikes that are happening is going to be the culmination of that. He's saying that's the final stage, confrontation. So there has to be a buildup. And we're seeing it with these worker strikes that when he's interviewing, I think when he's doing this interview, it's very fresh where now we know what has happened with those strikes. So let's listen in a few more seconds and then we have another clip here.
Now, built around very specific economic and labor demands. That's where the energy has to go.
Absolutely. Let's now go to the third video here. Which one? This one I did. So it must be this one. All right. Very weird to think you can run as a Democrat while at the same time saying how terrible the Dems are. The problem with all progressive Democrats like Nina, AOC, and Mariam is, I hope I'm saying that, Marianne, is they have been a complete failure. I never ran as a Democrat. That's a quote from Kshama. So let's listen to this clip, and then we'll get into the main part of the interview where I'll play it from YouTube here. So let's listen to this part here.
I have never seen, I mean, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't think it happens from a political analysis standpoint that you will run as a Democrat knowing what they are and then be play some sort of Trojan horse role in order to bring people out of the Democratic Party. It doesn't work that way. And furthermore, there's a deeper problem with that, because when you run your campaign as a Democrat, what message are you telling people? Are you telling people, vote for me, even though this party, which I am going to tell you next year, I'm going to tell you how rotten this party is, but this year I'm going to run as a candidate in this party. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't work that way. If you're going to be really bringing working people along with you and really fight for something, you cannot do it on the basis of, I'll keep this a secret. No, you do it on the basis of the full truth.
I'm going to pause it there because she brings up a point that I mentioned before, just keep a secret. And I can't remember which stream, but it was where you can't critique the Democrats. You got to kind of keep what you really feel a secret. I feel like that's what she's saying. And that's my point too. A militant candidacy. So when I say a militant candidacy and then people who are still on board with the progressive Democrat, yeah, that's what I'm talking about too. And I'm like, you're not talking about what I'm talking about. I guarantee you're not. Because the militant I'm talking about, I haven't seen. And I had this discussion with Hector when the one who ran as a progressive Democrat, but this is after he ran. He hit me up to have this debate, and I told him, I'm like, yeah, like I could possibly get behind like a militant, like somebody who's running, who's publicly saying Democrats are terrible, corrupt, blah blah blah. And he's like, no, yeah, yes. And I'm like, dude, I listened to your campaign ad. I listened to all the campaign ads that was on that website. This was specifically about the Marianne Williamson when she was push a bunch of progressives. I said, I went there, I saw all their stuff. Nobody's talking in a way that I'm talking. They literally think that they're being militant. That's what they think. And now let me just rewind it back a little bit here so you can hear what she says here.
Fight for something. You cannot do it on the basis of, I'll keep this a secret. No.
Right. So it can't be keeping it a secret, tippy-toeing around. It has to be Nancy Pelosi is corrupt and I'm running as a Democrat because they've set up the system where we only can run as one. I'm running to get all these corrupt Democrats out, like Nancy Pelosi, like Joe Biden. That might be militant. You might gain a few more leftists that will vote for somebody who's speaking like that. But really, to challenge the power and to challenge the system, you have to run not as red or not as blue.
No, you do it on the basis of the full truth, and then you have the confidence in the workers that they will come with you despite the fact that maybe what you're saying is unorthodox. I never ran as a Democrat. I've repeatedly been told by all kinds of people, including some who are elected now, that, oh, you should run as a Democrat. That's the key to success. Well, no, absolutely not. And I'll also tell you that, going back to your original question about Nina Turner, AOC, and so on, I mean, the problem with all these people is that they have been Democrats and they've been progressive Democrats, but they have completely failed to challenge the Democratic elite.
That last point there, let's go straight there.
I have never seen,
fast forward to that. That's the point I want to talk about first.
No, absolutely not. And I'll also tell you that, going back to your original question about Nina Turner, AOC, and so on, I mean, the problem with all these people is that they have been Democrats and they've been progressive Democrats, but they have completely failed to challenge the Democratic elite.
And that's the part about this strategy that no one can really address, is that we have people who have done the strategy you are talking about, and is a complete failure. You're trying to tell us how these new crop of people are all going to be different than the ones that came about. How is that? They're saying the same thing. They're talking in the same manner, not willing to go as far in the same way, or not even as far as AOC used to talk more than what some of these progressive Democrats are willing to say now. Just think. I don't know. Let's get to the main one, and we'll watch the entire, not the entire, because I'm not gonna watch the entire, but there's a certain section that I'm gonna start. This is about 20-minute mark to about the 30-minute mark, where that discussion there is very interesting. And that's where, so let me share this one here. So let's go here. Give it a second. There we go. Let me look at my notes here. Probably have to mute this. It's probably going to be a commercial. Let's look and see. What mark am I looking at here? 20 seconds, 20 minutes and 49 seconds. All right, so that's what I need to scroll it to. We'll start there and see how much we get through. This is a really interesting conversation. I'll start actually at 20:08, just so we can get the full context. So here we go.
The consciousness of workers pick up concrete demands like $15 an hour, right? Like rent control, and then try to build a real fight back around it. And it's through the experience of.
All right, that's not gonna work. She's saying something too good to just start there. So let's back that up a little more and give her more of what she's saying there.
30s who have nothing invested in the current system and are really eager to fight for some kind of change. But I do think that we have to look at this as not as a sequential process. Your question about political party and labor organizing, I wouldn't see those two things as separate. In fact, I think very strong, and this is how we have run every election campaign in Seattle, is with the idea that every election campaign we do run on the left. I don't think we have to. I don't believe that the electoralist route is the right way to go, which may seem strange to people that I'm saying that after having won 3 elections and defeated the recall. But that is precisely why we are saying this, because we don't believe that 1 or 2 elected positions are where it's at. But what we do want to do is provide a way forward for politically to become separated, to really extricate ourselves from the stranglehold of the Democratic Republican sort of duopoly. How do we do that? I don't think we are in a position to say, well, let's have some labor militancy, then we'll do a political party. I think it has to be part of the same political conversation. And every year, every time that we have run an election campaign, we have run it on that basis, meaning we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know that we're going to win on day one. We don't know we fight like hell to win. Yes. And we have won victories. But
all right. So we're getting to the part where I was going to start it. So all of that was sort of just a backstory about what she's talking about so that we get the context. And now we're getting to the part where I have it marked.
Every year that we run the election, the goal is not the election result itself. The goal is to raise the consciousness.
This part here. Now, I didn't mean to stop it here, or wasn't the original plan. But think about, because I'm thinking back to, I've heard Nina Turner in many interviews say, what do you think I'm just running for my help, basically? Like, no, I'm trying to win. It is a complete different strategy that she's talking about here. The campaign is not the center. The campaign is part of the regular movement. So if the movement is doing, mutual aid, doing political education, is, feeding the poor, is doing that, the people who are doing this will also run somebody, so that person will have power for the organization that's already doing the work. That is the strategy. Not trying to convince strangers that, hey, come vote for me because of this, and this. These are the things I say I support. The campaign isn't the point. The campaign is one of the strategies. And that's the way forward. And I think Case Study QB, it has something similar to what Kshama is talking about here, which is really a socialist sort of approach, communist approach to politics.
Business of workers pick up concrete demands.
More accurately, a Marxist approach.
Like $15 an hour, right? Like rent control, and then try to build a real fight back around it. And it's through the experience of struggle that workers will realize, hey, we also need our own political organizations, because yes, we can march and strike, but unless we build our own political organizations, it all falls on the altar of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that seems very obviously true to me as well, Kshama. I hear the point about how young workers aren't confused about what the stakes are, and that there's this growing level of militancy in older workers as well. But I also am hearing from folks that there's an appetite, a very strong appetite for somewhere politically to put all of the energy that they want to withdraw from the Democratic Party. There are people who are not workers, who aren't in a position because they're already unemployed or other, reasons that they cannot go on strike. There are people who are independent. There are people who are, in situations where they want to be able to express themselves politically in the most kind of widely advertised and understood way that people have to express themselves politically, which, like it or not, is at the ballot booth. And so I think that is why we're having these robust conversations that are emerging right now about whether or not there is going to be a viable third-party option in 2024. This recent article, they asked Jeff Weaver, Bernie Sanders' former presidential campaign manager, will there be a progressive challenger? And he said unequivocally yes. Names that have been thrown around in the context of this article were Marianne Williamson and Nina Turner.
I've addressed that. Please stop with the Marianne Williamson. I don't know who wrote this article, but good Lord.
AOC's former communications director, Corbin Trent, was quoted as saying about Biden, he's deeply unpopular, he's old as shit, he's largely been ineffective, unless we're counting judges or whatever the hell inside baseball scorecard we're using. And I think he'll probably get demolished in the midterms. New poll numbers came out today showing new lows for Joe Biden. And people on the left aren't satisfied, I think, at this moment saying, oh gosh, Biden's not doing very well. They really want an opportunity to telegraph their discontent that is something other than staying at home, which can be construed as, you just are disaffected, you're just lazy, you're just sitting out, you are giving up your civic responsibility. And to that end, I wonder what you make about some of these options that have been floated as a third-party candidate. And do you think there will be, and should be a challenger, a progressive challenger, whether they run on the Democratic Party ticket or as a third party, to Joe Biden in 2024?
There absolutely should be a progressive challenger from the left in a militant campaign. I absolutely don't think it should be from the Democratic Party. And I do want to address the specific names that you brought up. But before doing that, I want to say it's much more about the strategy, the political strategy that we as working people use to bring a real challenge to the Democratic and Republican candidates. And the starting point, the ABCs of that strategy are you don't run as a Democrat. Because look at what they did to Bernie Sanders. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry of progressive Democrats supported Bernie in 2020. They were, when I went to the Tacoma Dome to speak at Bernie's rally, they were all there with me. I know these people. They don't support Bernie's politics, but they were there because it was so easy. There was nothing at stake to get on the Bernie bandwagon at that time, and yet then go ahead and support Biden once Bernie was crushed, because we all knew that was going to happen. The Democratic Party elite were going to use some trick or another to get Bernie off the books. And then you got James Clyburn, you got South Carolina, and lo and behold, it happened. We didn't know exactly how it would happen, but we knew it would happen. So the first obligation we have as people on the left, if we are serious organizers, if we have any loyalty to the working class, is to first be crystal clear about that. Whether it makes you popular or not, be crystal clear. The Democratic Party is not the way to go. And I don't want to hear, these things that people come up with on the left where they'll say, well, it's the ballot line, it's a technicality. No, this is no technicality. This is, if you don't run as an independent, you are not taking on the fight that needs to be taken on, which is to present an independent fight back. And if you don't, Bernie was the strongest expression so far of the burning desires that working people have. And I have a lot of appreciation for Bernie, but look what happened. It went nowhere. And so the question really is, can we have an independent challenge? And can we have, through that campaign, the ability to build something? I mean, one of the things that Socialist Alternative had repeatedly called on Bernie to do is, after you were crushed by the Democratic elite, don't just admit defeat, maybe launch a big organization, launch a independent political organization coming out of it. I have no doubt that had he done that, millions would have joined him. And that could have been the starting point of what could have been a political organization for the left. So it has to start somewhere, but it cannot start unless we have the most basic political clarity of what, how do we go about it?
Well, do you agree with that, Professor Hedges? Because there is this argument that says, well, Bernie might not have had as much traction and movement energy and been as exposed to as many people if he hadn't.
So this is where it starts they go back and forth in... Yeah, let me let it happen first, and then I'll give my
run as a Democrat if he hadn't been on the debate stage, and that the path might be run as a Democrat, but when they start asking you those questions about will you vote for the eventual nominee, do what all of the corporatists did when Bloomberg got in the race and say, it depends if it's Bernie or not, right? So go ahead and say, no, I won't pledge my allegiance to you. Say what Trump said. No, I won't commit to that right now. And instead go ahead and pursue a third party the way Kshama has just described if you end up being kind of pushed out the way that Bernie was in 2016 and 2020.
No, I agree with Kshama. And in fact, Kshama and I were with Bernie the night before the climate march in New York City. This was back in, what was it, Kshama, 2016, I think.
It was 2014, actually.
14. And Kshama was pushing Bernie to run as an independent. And it was fascinating to me that Bernie responded by saying, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader. And what he was really saying is, I don't want to be destroyed by the Democratic Party establishment. So Bernie has always been circumscribed by the parameters of the Democratic Party. He caucuses as a Democrat. And let me remind listeners that Dennis Kucinich, who is a Democrat, was forbidden from caucusing with the Democrats by Pelosi. And then the Democratic establishment redrew or gerrymandered his district to drive him out of the House of Representatives. So Bernie knows the cost, and he doesn't want to pay it. He was campaigning for Clinton in '96. This was after NAFTA, after the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill. He knows what the Democrats are about, and that's why he will not confront the Democratic Party establishment, because he doesn't want to end up like Ralph Nader. Those are his own words. And let me just go back to the issue of strikes. General strikes are largely organized to bring down regimes. That's what happened in Iran with the Shoah. That's what happened in Cuba with Batista. They are economic weapons because, of course, they will cripple the country. But their objective is usually the political overthrow of a regime. And so calling for general strikes is the late stage of the confrontation with power. What we have to focus on are the strikes by coal workers and Kellogg workers and Starbucks workers and Amazon workers. And that's where the energy has to go now, built around very specific.
There's very few people on the left that you can think of who haven't been on this channel who we haven't invited multiple times, like this person. Okay? So let me just tell everybody who's watching, if you haven't seen him here, that doesn't mean we haven't reached out. Ajamu Baraka is one of them. It took a while for us to get Cornel West. We had reached out to him several months for that before he actually came on. So we reach out to these people. We, like JB, just got Kshama, but we've been trying to get Kshama for a long time. So it takes a while. But yes, we do try to get some of these people that you mentioned in our chats. We do reach out to these people.
Economic and labor demands. That's where the energy has to go. So yes, I'm in total agreement with Kshama that, and I think recent history has borne this out, that being herded back into the embrace of the Democratic Party in this kind of least worst scenario has just progressively made everything worse.
So I think the argument isn't that it's the opposite, not that you would be herding people back in the Democratic Party, but that you would go into the Democratic Party herd and then herd them out at the end of the campaign. But granted that you don't like that strategy.
Can I just, Brianna, sorry to interrupt you, but can I just say one thing? I think.
Let me take this off the screen. I don't think this part was one of the videos, or if it is, let me see if it rings a bell.
I think that people who raise that point, I mean, in my view, it is an entirely a hypothetical point, in the sense that the same instincts that lead people to think that, oh, I should run Democrat because then I can get whatever debate, airtime, whatever, are the instincts that tell you not to then say, I'm not going to support Biden. I'm going to launch a political organization of my own. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, the two go together.
It's like the same instinct. Like you can't have a... Like you can't be a reformist, one instinct be reformist and one instinct be revolutionary is what kind of if you disagree with that. He's saying both of them are reformist sort of points of view.
Together, I have never seen. I mean, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't think it happens from a political analysis standpoint that you will run as a Democrat knowing what they are, and then be some sort of play some sort of Trojan horse role in order to bring people out of the Democratic Party. It doesn't work that way. And furthermore, there's a deeper problem with that, because when you run your campaign as a Democrat, what message are you telling people? Are you telling people, vote for me, even though this party, which I am going to tell you next year, I'm going to tell you how rotten this party is, but this year I'm going to run as a candidate in this party. It doesn't, do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't work that way. If you're going to be really bringing working people along with you and really fight for something, you cannot do it on the basis of, oh, I'll keep this a secret. No, you do it on the basis of the full truth, and then you have the confidence in the workers that they will come with you despite the fact that maybe what you're saying is unorthodox. You know, I never ran as a Democrat.
Side, didn't you get the memo? We're still hunting.
All right, commercial.
Been told by all kinds of people, including some who are elected now, that, oh, you should run as a Democrat. That's the key to success. Well, no, absolutely not. And I'll also tell you that, you know, going back to your original question about Nina Turner, AOC, and so on, I mean, the problem with all these people is that they have been Democrats and they've been progressive Democrats, but they have completely failed to challenge the Democratic elite. And so ultimately, it is a question of whether you're going to, in your campaign, not sometime later, in your campaign, are you going to have a fighting message of what kind of politics we need?
So let's talk about that, because I can very easily imagine a world where you launch your campaign, you say, I'm running on the Democratic ticket only because I want to have access to all of the benefits of running on the Democratic ticket. I need ballot access. I want to be on the debate stage. I want to be actually heard and not marginalized in the way that candidates like Jill Stein and Ralph Nader have been
marginalized. The Democratic Party won't let you. The Democratic Party, again, that's why I'm saying this is hypothetical, because if you did have a candidate like that who said, I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm running to crush the Democratic Party, I am running only to get the benefits of the logistics, but politically I am completely antagonistic to the Democratic Party's agenda, which is the Wall Street agenda, then the Democratic Party will find another creative way of keeping you off the books. They'll even pass a new bylaw in their, whatever, the DNCC, saying you can't attend the debates or whatever. And what I'm saying is that it can't happen. They will come up with something else.
Let's play this out. Because what we're juxtaposing is a world where Bernie did it pretty much what he did in 2016 or 2020, but instead of endorsing Biden after 5 days or whatever it was, he says, no, I'm going to start a new party. In a world where Ralph Nader or Jill Stein had the campaigns that they had, at the end of which they did, what they did. They continue to be obviously Green Party advocates and third party advocates, but didn't result in the same kind of political traction or movement energy or enrolling in DSA or whatever these organizations that the Bernie 2016 campaign resulted in. And I guess what I'm asking is, why are we so confident that the kind of Jill Stein, the route that we've seen manifested before from third-party candidates, is going to be more effective than a world where a Bernie-style figure manages to capture all of the energy because they are seen and heard and resonate with a large portion of the population that is disgruntled, and then has the temerity because they are a sincere outsider. Let's say someone who isn't elected and a congressperson. Neither Marianne Williamson or Nina Turner are.
So, like Kshama keeps saying, the back and forth here is that you keep, Brianna, describing somebody that does not exist. That's why she keeps saying this is a hypothetical, because then the people you name aren't what you just described, what needs to happen. That's why she keeps falling back, in my opinion, that's why this is hypothetical, because no one who's out there is that. No one. Bernie is not that. We see Bernie is not that.
The workers, that they will come with you despite the fact that maybe what you're saying is unorthodox. I never ran as a Democrat. I have repeatedly been told by all kinds of people, including some who are elected now, that, oh, you should run as a Democrat. That's the key to success. Well, no, absolutely not. And I'll also tell you that, going back to your original question about Nina Turner, AOC, and so on. I mean, the problem with all these people is that they have been Democrats and they've been progressive Democrats, but they have completely failed to challenge the Democratic elite. And so ultimately, it is a question of whether you're going to, in your campaign, not sometime later, in your campaign, are you going to have a fighting message of what kind of politics we need?
So let's talk about that, because I can very easily imagine a world where you launch your campaign, you say, I'm running on the Democratic ticket only because I want to have access to all of the benefits.
Now, this is a key part where reformists and revolution, and I'm only able to even pinpoint this point here is because I went through the same thing. Okay? So let's let Bree describe what she's saying again.
Campaign, you say, I'm running on the Democratic ticket only because I want to.
I'm not saying in a interview. I'm running a Democrat, like Nina Turner has said that in an interview. That's not what we're saying. That is a campaign slogan. I'm only running as a Democrat because so-and-so is corrupt, because this system is corrupt. I want to get, that's different than what anybody else has done, including Bernie Sanders. It's not the same thing. And reformists think it is. It's not.
Want to have access to all of the benefits of running on the Democratic ticket. I need ballot access. I want to be on the debate stage. I want to be actually heard and not marginalized in the way that candidates like Jill Stein and Ralph Nader have been
marginalized. The Democratic Party won't let you. The Democratic Party, again, that's why I'm saying this is hypothetical, because
right. Because she's saying what you're describing, that's not going to be a person. They won't let that happen.
If you did have a candidate like that who said, I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm running to crush the Democratic Party, I am running only to get the benefits of the logistics, but politically I am completely antagonistic to the Democratic Party's agenda, which is the Wall Street agenda, then the Democratic Party will find another creative way of keeping you off the books. They'll even pass a new bylaw in their, whatever, the DNCC, saying you can't attend the debates or whatever. And what I'm saying is that it can't happen. They will come up with something else.
Let's play this out. Because what we're juxtaposing is a world where Bernie did it pretty much what he did in 2016 or 2020, but instead of endorsing Biden after 5 days or whatever it was, he says, no, I'm going to start a new party. In a world where Ralph Nader or Jill Stein had the campaigns that they had, at the end of which they did, what they did. They continue to be obviously Green Party advocates and third party advocates, but didn't result in the same kind of political traction or movement energy or enrolling in DSA or whatever these organizations that the Bernie 2016 campaign resulted in. And I guess what I'm asking is, why are we so confident that the kind of Jill Stein, the route that we've seen manifested before from third-party candidates, is going to be more effective than a world where a Bernie-style figure manages to capture all of the energy because they are seen and heard and resonate with a large portion of the population that is disgruntled?
The reason we're so confident, I think the question should be different. Why are we confident that the Bernie way is not going to work? Is because it hasn't worked. You're asking, why are we so confident, or why are they answering the question as if they're confident? I don't think that's what they're doing, but the way you're asking is, how are they so confident that this third party way, the Jill Stein way, is going to work? It's not that we're confident in that. It's just that we're confident in the way that you're describing progressive Democrats, that's not going to work. It's just that we are overly and adequately confident that that's not going to work. That's what we're saying. And I think that is the question, is, why are we so confident this is not going to work? Or maybe that's the reason why it's not being asked, because we know where the answer is because we've tried this. So let's continue.
And then has the temerity because they are a sincere outsider. Let's say someone who isn't elected in a congressperson, neither Marianne Williamson or Nina Turner are, then went ahead and pivoted. I mean, I hear what you're saying about some skepticism. We never know what someone's going to do in the 11th hour. But it seems like the possibility that that might work out seems higher than the real life outcomes of some of these third party runs. And I say this as a third party voter.
No, I agree with Kshama. It doesn't work because there is a Faustian bargain. You've seen AOC essentially be emasculated by Pelosi and the Democratic Party leadership. And Bernie, there was a very clear quid pro quo that if Bernie was going to run as a Democrat, and even then,
that was clear from the campaigning. Now, we were all happy. He's campaigning and he's saying great things. But what he kept saying that we didn't get until the end, towards the end, he kept saying this phrase, Joe Biden's my friend. In the beginning, we didn't catch that was a problem phrase there. The phrase that was telling us he was going to sell us out at the end. We just thought he just shouting out his friend. He's trying to be nice. It was a quick pro quo that you're going to be doing this regardless. It was almost like an exercise, almost like a forced to vote moment where you knew you wasn't going to get there. Bernie knew he wasn't going to get there. He knows how corrupt the Democratic Party is. He knew he wasn't going to win. He knew they wasn't going to allow that. And yet and still, what did he tell us to do? Go out and support the Democratic Party. And it's because he didn't want to become a Ralph Nader. Now, you tell me if that's a person that's serious about a movement. That he's saying what's going to happen to me matters more than the millions of fucking people I was able to put together, red and blue, out here. Because when his thing, and this is a separate point, when his thing ended, people say, what happened to the left? That wasn't a left coalition that Bernie had. That was a coalition of the type of coalition that we need now. People from conservative, from all walks of life supporting one candidate because of what some of the things that he's saying. Bernie Sanders' campaign wasn't a left campaign. There were people in that campaign, people in the audience who agreed with him on most of the things, but didn't agree with him on abortion, didn't agree with him on gay marriage. But they still supported because they supported the majority of what he was saying.
You had all sorts of dirty tricks used against him, the DNC, invalidating independent voters in the primaries. And of course, many young voters are independent. In the case of the Nevada caucus, essentially just flipping the results, etc. But the quid pro quo is you are going to support the Democratic nominee. And if the party thinks that you are going to turn at the end of that campaign against them, they will engage in everything they can to crush you. In terms of third-party effectiveness,
which is the same. It's just the same situation a third-party candidate is in, or that Bernie ultimately was in when he was forced out. No,
but look at what they do to third parties. So, I mean, I worked with Ralph. I was Ralph's speechwriter, and the Democrats.
Now, listen to this. You know what? Let me see if I can find my. I know what's about to come up, and I need to find another video to address it. So,
Democratic Party threw up roadblock after roadblock. They challenged all his voting lists, running up over $1 million in legal bills, even though the voting lists were all valid. They would not allow him in the debates. They did the same thing, by the way, to Kucinich. They used to have, you had to poll at a certain percentage, and I think it was New Hampshire or something, and Kucinich reached, I think it was 10%. I can't remember what it was. He reached the threshold that the Democratic Party had set to be in the debates, and they literally locked him out of the hall. So what they do to third parties, which is a bipartisan effort following Ross Perot, they are just never going to allow a third party candidate in there or allow a true rebel like Kucinich to give any kind of platform.
So I'm hearing you say that third party candidates are never going to have a chance. and someone running on the Democratic Party line is also never going to have a chance. So I don't know what to do with that.
But Brianna, I'm saying that's why I'm stressing, as I think Kshama is, labor organizing, that the power we have, yes, we have to step outside the system, which threatens the system. But the real lever we have, or the working class has in terms of power, is the ability to disrupt the economy through organized strikes and labor action. And when you get that kind of a combination, a political expression of that labor militancy, then it becomes quite potent.
And I think, just to follow up on what Chris just said, Brianna, if I might, I think that is exactly the point that we have to bring in, because we should not accept that the choices are a Bernie Sanders who's genuine in many ways, but as Chris was saying, he has a long history of he has decided what his political line is going to be, and we cannot just be limited to that either. So we cannot accept that the choices are either have a Bernie Sanders, or which is not going to go anywhere outside the Democratic Party, or have Nader or Stein kind of campaigns where they were just one-off campaigns. They didn't build anything outside of that. We Socialist Alternatives has supported Nader. I mean, we supported Nader before my time in Socialist Alternative. I campaigned for Jill Stein too, and we took a lot of flack for that from a lot of Democratic Party leaders. But we don't believe that's all that should.
So I'm gonna go back to this part. Let me see. If
they would not allow him in the debates. They did the same thing, by the way, to Kucinich.
So it's the point that Breed brings up in response to Chris that I'm going to address, that I'm going to replan this for.
You had to poll at a certain percentage, and I think it was New Hampshire or something, and Kucinich reached, I think it was 10%. I can't remember what it was. He reached the threshold that the Democratic Party had set to be in the debates, and they literally locked him out of the hall. So what they do to third parties, which is a bipartisan effort following Ross Perot, they are just never going to allow a third party candidate in there, or allow a true rebel like Kucinich to give any kind of platform.
So I'm hearing you say that third party candidates are never going to have a chance, and someone running on the Democratic Party line is also never going to have a chance.
And listen to what Bree says about that.
So I don't know what to do with that.
You hear that? So I'm going to play it again. I don't know if anybody watching is seeing where I'm going with this. In another video I did, actually a call-in show I went on Bree, and I answered what she's saying.
It's just the same situation a third party candidate is in, or that Bernie ultimately was in when he was forced out. No,
but look at what they do to third parties. So
hang on a second.
Parties. So I mean, I worked with Ralph.
Where was that at here?
So I don't know what to do with that.
Okay, now I know what I'm at. Okay.
Allow a true rebel like Kucinich to give any kind of platform.
So I'm hearing you say that third party candidates are never going to have a chance, and someone running on the Democratic Party line is also never going to have a chance. So I don't know what to do with that.
Third party candidates is never going to have a chance. Somebody running as a Democrat is never going to have a chance. And then she says, I don't know what to do with that. That is the crossroads we have been at as a left movement for a long while. It's the non-acceptance that our only pathway is through revolution. That's what she said. That's the conversation that Bree is describing. And when I went on her show, actually, I'm trying to find the clip. When I went on her show, actually, I'm gonna find it. So I'm gonna keep looking until I find it. Where I went on her show, I don't remember what's in the tweet to even know. I just know what video is there. So I don't even know what to even look up to like search. That's why I have to kind of do it, a little bit at a time. But anyway, it's a video when I went on her calling show I actually, me and Afeni went on her calling show. That's back when Afeni was a part of RBN, FHL at the time. Maybe, yeah, FHL at the time. And went on her show, and we discussed this very thing. The point that I had was, it's staring us right in the face. Because I did a third-party summit, and it was very hard finding third-party candidates. So I said, my inability to find third-party candidates and the issues we're having with the Democratic Party is staring us right in the face. That electoral politics is dead, but we don't want to accept that as a movement. So I think I'm getting close here, but I'll let you know. But we're not accepting that as a movement, and that's, to me, is so clear. And here it is. I'm gonna have to bookmark this some other kind of way because I feel like I'm gonna use this again in the future. So let me. Yeah, I don't want to take this video down. So let me take this down and share something different here. All right, here we go. That's not it. This is not it. This is it. Okay. So this is how I addressed that very point that Bree made in the video, is that I'm hearing you say the third party route is not the way to go, and I'm hearing you say the Democratic route is not the way to go. I don't know what to do with that. So think of that, and this is how I address that.
The last point I want to make is this: us not being able to locate third party candidates, the Democratic Party being as awful as they are, it's like staring all of us right in the face. Electoral politics is done. We're not getting anything done through electoral politics. It's staring us right in the face, but we're refusing to accept that as a movement because there's some of us who don't want to be in the streets doing the work. That's literally what's happening here, is that it's people that don't want to take it there yet. So let's beat this dead horse some more. And I'm here, and I think RBN is here to say, let's shake everybody awake. This is over. This is over.
Can I add just another angle?
The last point I want to make.
So I'll replay it in a second, but we're all saying, yeah, do what you can. If you need to vote, go out and vote Green Party, do that. Third party, go do that. But if you're asking, what is our top strategy to get anything, voting is not it. Voting is not it. And in this clip, I say the Green Party, the two terrible corporatist imperialist parties have made it, set the rules for who can join in the participation of candidates, right? They set the rules, and now they're saying we don't want nobody else. So the corrupt people have made it hard for us, for other people. And then getting anything through the corrupt system, through the corrupt people who are keeping the third party out, getting anything through them is just as tough as trying to create a third party. Why are we not seeing any other avenue? Why, when pathway 1 and pathway 2 is cut off, why are we acting like we're blind here? Why? If you're in a burning building and there's a window, there's two windows. There's a window and a door. You go to the door is hot. You go to the window's hot. Do you just go, I'm dead? Or do you go, those are panels on the roof. Let me see if I can push them and tunnel through. You get what I'm saying? Like, why is it when we see the both entryways, the easy entryways, the civility entryways are cut off, it's time to tear some shit up, right? Come on, people. We have to know this. And I think we know this. And I think I'm speaking to it here, is that simply we have people who don't want to take it there.
The last point I want to make is this. Us not being able to locate third-party candidates, the Democratic Party being as awful as they are, it's like staring all of us right in the face. Electoral politics is done. We're not getting anything done through electoral politics. It's staring us right in the face, but we're refusing to accept that as a movement because there's some of us who don't want to be in the streets doing the work. That's literally what's happening here, is that it's people that don't want to take it there yet. So let's beat this dead horse some more. And I'm here, and I think RBN is here to say, let's shake everybody awake. This is over. This is over.
Can I add just another?
So now there's another clip that this person was kind enough to clip for me, and that's combat liberalism. And let's go to this other one. Politics is not about. Oh yeah. So this is the argument that I had about progressive Democrats, and this idea that because you're a good person and I'm voting you in, that somehow is going to do anything, and it's not. So I'm addressing that point in this next audio here. So let's listen to this audio.
The way that everybody or whoever's describing it this way, how do we ever get rid of the red-blue game doing it the way you're talking about, where we're electing progressives to the less racist imperialist team? And think about that. This is another big point that needs to be discussed here. And that is, none of the non-corporate Democrats who are running, none of your ideas is the point of politics. So you not taking money is irrelevant if your boss takes money from corporations. It truly is irrelevant because you don't take money, but you're joining a team that takes money. You're for Medicare for all, but you're joining a team that's not for it. You're for defund the police, but you're joining a team that's not for it. Politics is not about your individual belief. Politics is about the way that everybody or whoever's describing it this way. How do we ever get rid of the red-blue game doing it the way?
It's cut off. I say politics is about your team's belief, not your individual belief. Case in point, the next Congress, when 200 and some odd Democrats, last Congress, 200 and some odd Congress members showed up, House members showed up, right, to Washington, D.C., sworn in for this next Congress, right? Over 200. Do you think the Democratic Party executed over 200 different ideas, or they executed one idea? Politics is not about your individual beliefs. That's why it doesn't matter if you don't take money, if you're going to go to Washington and take orders from people who take money. This is why you can't do it through the Democratic Party. You can't say, I'm not going to use that analogy. Let's just let's go back to the interview and finish up the part of the interview that we wanted to cover, and then we'll be ending the stream pretty soon here. So let's go back to the original video, and here we go. Face is itching so bad. Okay.
But Brianna, I'm saying that's why I'm stressing, as I think Kshama is, labor organizing, that the power we have, yes, we have to step outside the system, which threatens the system. But
see, when reformists, and I'm not saying Brianna is, but when reformists, when they say, yeah, I think we should do, throw everything, throw the kitchen sink, do everything. No, they have to be done in coordination with each other. I love when people have that answer, but let me rewind it just a little bit and
allow a true rebel like Kucinich to give any kind of platform.
So I'm hearing you say that third-party candidates are never going to have a chance, and someone running on the Democratic Party line is also never going to have a chance. So I don't know what to do with that.
But Brianna, I'm saying that's why I'm stressing, as I think Kshama is, labor organizing, that the power we have, yes, we have to step outside the system.
They don't see, reformists don't see that as the biggest thing. When they're talking about electoralism, they're not talking about it in conjunction with labor organizing, what Kshama does. That's not what they're talking about. That is a huge part of the strategy of Chris and Kshama that reformists is completely missing. That is the whole game. If you're using electoral politics, is the labor organizing. Even to execute what you want to do through electoral politics, you need the labor organizing. And that's what's sadly being missed here. With all the progressive Democrats that are running, I don't see any labor organizing behind that. And wouldn't it get co-opted by the kings of co-op, and that is the Democratic Party?
System, which threatens the system. But the real lever we have, or the working class has in terms of power, is the ability to disrupt the economy through organized strikes and labor action.
This is what I'm saying. This is it. This is the way to disrupt. There is no more other way. There is no voting. There is no electoral path. It's sitting on our butts. Stop giving them our labor at a discounted price. That is literally it. That's the power we have. They've stripped us of everything else. And still doing it through the Supreme Court. We're not getting this through electoralism. If we would have, wouldn't we already have abortion rights? Wouldn't we have that already? But the Democratic Party, the party who says they want it and is for it and is fighting for it, they can't even pass legislation, and they are here. They run the White House, the Senate, and the House, and they can't do it. But we still think it's going to happen that way. It's bizarre to me. It's bizarre. But let's continue. Let me see where this ends.
And when you get that kind of a combination, a political expression of that labor militancy, then it becomes quite potent.
And I think, just to follow up on what Chris just said, Brianna, if I might, I think that is exactly the point that we have to bring in, because we should not accept that the choices are a Bernie Sanders who's genuine in many ways, but as Chris was saying, he has a long history of he has decided what his political line is going to be, and we cannot just be limited to that either.
She's being nice. He sold us out. I said that before. He sold us out. That's what she's describing.
But we cannot accept that the choices are either have a Bernie Sanders, or which is not going to go anywhere outside the Democratic Party, or have Nader or Stein kind of campaigns where they were just one-off campaigns. They didn't build anything outside of that. We Socialist Alternatives has supported Nader. I mean, we supported Nader before my time in Socialist Alternative. I campaigned for Jill Stein too, and we took a lot of flack for that from a lot of Democratic Party leaders. But we don't believe that's all that should be on offer. What we need are electoral campaigns of certain kinds. Yes, if we run a third party candidate, if we run a left candidate for president, or if we run left candidates, socialist candidates for local elections, we want to do it in a certain way. We want to do it in a way that promotes that kind of militant organizing by workers, that is connected to deeper organizing, that is not a one-off campaign. None of our campaigns have ever been a one-off campaign. We are a political organization. So
like reformists literally, they can't compute what she's saying, because it's such a checkbox sort of thing for them. Elections coming, 9 months out. Let's get flyers out. Let's do this. Like that's not. You have to disassociate yourself from the duopoly style of campaigning, duopoly style of approach to politics, you have to disassociate from that understanding to get how this is going to work.
Socialist alternative would have existed even if we had not defeated the recall. Yes, it would have been a setback, but the point is, at every step of the way, we are setting the correct political markers. We are learning lessons. The working class is learning lessons through our campaign. They see how nakedly we force the ire of the Democratic elite on us because we want them to be exposed in the eyes of the working class. That is how we have done it every single time. And that's the approach we need. So I don't think we should be saying, oh, well, we have a Nader approach or we have the Bernie Sanders approach. Where do we go? No, those are not the choices. We have to have a militant approach towards building a political organization. And just because it hasn't been done so far in the US doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just a question of, actually learning lessons from history as well.
Okay, so what does that look like? Because I'm not advocating for either of those two approaches, but what it becomes frustrating, I will say, as a podcaster, as a journalist, is that people are very quick to say what cannot be and what will not work. And there's so much pessimism on the left. And what I'm hearing from people that I get to talk to through my profession and doing these call-in episodes and people call into the show is that people want an outlet. They want to know what they can do. And most people, you say organize, that's great. But like it or not, they don't know what that means or what to do next. And nobody listening to the podcast is going to be like, oh, okay, let me just go organize. I've had members of labor leaders on this show and asked them literally, what should people go and do? Tell them the website to go to.
Why? I'm going to address this.
Organization.
This approach that she's describing, and it feels like she's a little perturbed about this. Maybe she's had people come on and activists say organize. Like, organizers are not going to hold your hand to organize. That's not how it's going to happen. Like, it's you organize, you go in your community, you figure it out.
Organization to sign up with, the place to give
like
money.
This idea that, organize, okay, where's the website? Oh, that's the website. Oh, okay, I'm organizing. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. But reformists, liberals, progressives, whatever you want to call it, I guess maybe they've been conditioned for this, like, quick. That's not how this is going to work. It's not a quick thing. It's you go out, go out in the streets. But this is something I want RBN to meet. This is why we want to have this big meeting with RBN so we can address some of the things that Brianna is bringing up here. We want to have answers for those people. We want to say, yeah, we don't have a website we can give you, but we can give you some tips on how to organize in your city. It's taking you going out and putting yourself out. That's what it takes. It's not going to be, I have a website. Oh, I know where all the people who are organizing here. Now I just got to go. That's not how it's going to be. You're building it from the ground up.
And there's a lot of like shrugging and I'm not sure. I have labor leaders. I have people who come to me and say, oh, can you maybe not put that bit in the podcast because I made a critique of labor leadership and I don't want to get in trouble. This is what I'm hearing. And so it's not that I have lack of confidence in the idea that organizing is useful or the historical precedent of organizing, but I'm looking at the reality that there's all of this energy. Because we're talking about midterms, like it or not, the media cycle is dominated by these electoral narratives, that we have people actively excited about the idea of a challenge to Joe Biden, who was a feeble and deeply unpopular president. So unpopular that the people are seriously talking about Hillary Clinton throwing her hat in the ring again. People who are Democratic, progressive operatives are very openly saying that they think that there will be a progressive challenger. And I want to know at this juncture, how to do the thing, how to make that a militant campaign in the way that you're describing, Kshama.
It's what I'm getting from Bree is that you want a prepackaged sort of step-by-step do-it-yourself guide on what to do when somebody says organize. And that's just simply not how it works. It's like we want shortcuts to organizing.
Or
there is
to
none.
wed those electoral campaign efforts in a way that supercharges or bolsters or shows.
We on the left have got to stop thinking in the same context of the duopoly of these quick results. Oh, every 4 years I go. That's not how it's going to be. That's not how it's going to be. For a left that's really starting from the bottom, we're starting from scratch. So this is years in the making. Years to build this up. It's no quick fix. There's no quickly get this candidate. None of that is going to happen.
Or shines a light on or somehow amplifies the labor militancy that you both are pointing out is so important to that effort.
But Brianna, let me, the problem is the genesis of the discussion. The Democratic Party does not function as a real political party. The base has absolutely no say in who leads it.
Correct. That's why people there's such an appetite for a third party alternative.
Well, right,
now.
but you're talking about running within the embrace.
Well, no, I'm just asking how it should be done. If you say you don't want it to be a Democrat, fine. But what does it look like for someone not to run as a Democrat, given that there are real impediments in terms of ballot access and having a platform to doing so? I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking for people to help people imagine what that can look like, because there's a reason why people.
We're all spending hours and hours discussing strategies on how to gain power through a corrupt system that has corrupt barriers up, ran by corrupt people. You see how this is never gonna be something that's solved here. This is not an honest system ran by honest people. So it feels like Brianna is representing the naivete in this argument here. It's just, I'm trying to figure out a better way of describing it that I haven't described it already. Let's listen some more. Let's see if I get a better idea.
People think the best way forward is to do the Bernie approach again, but with a candidate that is more willing than Bernie to bulk the party at the end.
That isn't going to happen. I agree with Kshama. And if you look at Syriza, a decade before it took power,
I got to tell you, Brianna's not that happy that they're not even engaging in the points really that she's making. And that is, in my opinion, because it's like Brianna is saying to these two well-educated people, the sky is yellow. They're not really going to engage in that. It's so absurd. Like we on the left, on the media sphere left, we engage in these because they're interesting conversations to have about it. But intellectuals like these, they're not interested in this. He was just like, no, that's not gonna happen. Let's move. That's not gonna happen. And I was just commenting because her reaction to that, like her smile kind of went right, like disappeared right away. Because he just is not engaging in this in that way.
a candidate that is more willing than Bernie to bulk the party at the end.
That isn't going to happen. I agree with Kshama. And if you look at Syriza, a decade before it took power, it's polling at 4%. The reason that there are so many impediments to third parties is precisely because of the two-party corporate duopoly, which has conspired essentially to prevent any kind of effective electoral challenge. So yes, it's going to be extremely difficult. They're going to throw every impediment they can in terms of third parties, but we're going to have to remain fast. And let me also add, the problem with running as a Democrat is that the working class is fully aware that the greatest betrayal that they have endured has come from the Democratic Party, and in particular, the Clinton administration. So in my book, America, the Farewell Tour, I wrote a chapter out of Anderson, Indiana, which used to be a huge center for GM plants. Well, after NAFTA, GM literally ripped down they moved all the machinery to Monterrey, Mexico, and then ripped down the plants and left giant weed-choked lots surrounded by cyclone fencing. And then, of course, Anderson fell into the kind of tailspin that many former industrial centers have fallen into. And I talked to the old UAW leadership, and they said they were never going to vote for Clinton. They're not unaware of who did this to them. So they actually voted for Bernie. But once Clinton got the nomination, they all voted for Trump. So workers, especially unionized workers, are well aware of the lies that were told to them that were far more destructive to their families, their livelihood, their communities than any lie ever told by Donald Trump. And that's the problem. That if you are going to attempt to reach out to the working class, at this point, you can't do it through the institutions of the Democratic Party.
I mean, that is literally a point that you cannot dispute. And I would just love to see the Sam Cedars, the Cenk Uygurs, and so on and so on. You know Nomiki Kunz, and you know all the names. Like, how do they address these points? Like, you can call us the dumb left all you want, but arguably two of the most effective voices on the left in the United States right now are these two voices. And they're echoing the same thing that RBN, these regular working class black people, have been saying. Or we're echoing them, or vice whatever. But when we said we're the dumb left, what about when they're saying it? How do you address this? And I'm going to go back. Like, how do you address this point that he's making about the working class?
That the greatest betrayal.
In terms of ballot access and have...
Like, people are aware of this. This is why we lost the white working class. Why Democrats lost the white working class. Because of NAFTA. Because of trade deals. You don't think they know why their city was decimated? Why their savings, why their work, why their lives were literally destroyed? You don't think they know that was the Democratic Party? So he's right. The problem with going through the Democratic Party is that the working class, specifically, he's speaking to the white working class, absolutely knows who destroyed their lives, and that was the Democratic Party. Bill Clinton, Joe Biden.
Having a platform to doing so. I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking for people to help people imagine what that can look like, because there's a reason why people think the best way forward is to do the Bernie approach again, but with a candidate that is more willing than Bernie to bulk the party at the end.
That isn't going to happen. I agree with Kshama. And if you look at Syriza, a decade before it took power, it's polling at 4%. The reason that there are so many impediments to third parties is precisely because of the two-party corporate duopoly, which has conspired essentially to prevent any kind of effective electoral challenge. So yes, it's going to be extremely difficult. They're going to throw every impediment they can in terms of third parties. But we're going to have to remain fast. And let me also add, the problem with running as a Democrat is that the working class is fully aware that.
Where is that comment? This one here. Revolutionaries also need to understand that the part electoral politics plays in revolution. See George Jackson's Blood in My Eyes. I do know this, and I'm not saying that's how Courtney, that you're saying it this way, but I'm going to use your comment to address a point that I've heard before. Not saying this is from you though. I sometimes hear this sort of response from people who push electoral politics, and then we say direct action. They go, well, you got to do both, but they're not doing both. And I'm also going to answer it in this way. We've had Thomas Frank on this network back when we were smaller, so a lot of people don't know he's been on this network, but he was one of the first bigger names that we had on this network. And I think it was a couple of times I had him on. And maybe I'll reach out to have him on again, because we talked about this particular subject. Electoral politics is literally born out of the movement, where you're saying we have this movement and somebody in the movement go run. So that is how electoral politics in a revolution, or should be used by revolutionaries, not a politician in a movement pairing. It's the politician coming out of the movement. That's a way of securing that the person you're voting for and pushing has all the right values you want to have. Right? So let's now go back to the video, because I thought that was a great comment for me to make that point.
That the greatest betrayal that they have endured has come from the Democratic Party, and in particular the Clinton administration. So in my book, America, the Farewell Tour, I wrote a chapter out of Anderson, Indiana, which used to be a huge center for GM plants. Well, after NAFTA, GM literally ripped down they moved all the machinery to Monterrey, Mexico, and then ripped down the plants and left giant weed-choked lots surrounded by cyclone fencing. And then, of course, Anderson fell into the kind of tailspin that many former industrial centers have fallen into. And I talked to the old UAW leadership, and they said they were never going to vote for Clinton. They're not unaware of who did this to them. So they actually voted for Bernie. But once Clinton got the nomination, they all voted for Trump.
Right. And that's how they describe Bernie voters voting for Trump. Republicans who came out, and he got Republicans to cross over and vote for him. And they describe that as Bernie Sanders voters going to Trump.
So workers, especially unionized workers, are well aware of the lies that were told to them that were far more destructive to their families, their livelihood, their communities than any lie ever told by Donald Trump. And that's the problem, that if you are going to attempt to reach out to the working class, at this point, you can't do it through the institutions of the Democratic Party, which has made war on workers now for several decades. It's got, and yes, it's going to be extremely difficult. And yes, they're going to find every mechanism that they can into throwing up walls and barriers to our advancement, which is why strikes are really important. But unfortunately, that's the only route left. And it is going to be a struggle. It's not going to be easy. They're not going to make it easy. It's never going to be easy, because essentially we're talking about the wresting back of power from these corporate elites into the hands of the citizenry.
I think everyone's really comfortable with the idea that it's not going to be easy. I think everyone's really, I don't think anyone has a particularly rosy outlook on this. But what does it look like? Let's just completely ignore the idea of running within the Democratic Party. Let's table that entirely. What does a third party candidacy look like that doesn't just repeat the kind of marginal effect that a Green Party run looks like? Should people be paying attention to, efforts like MPP or the Forward Party? Should the left just sit out 2024 and sit out 2022 because there isn't the level of labor militancy that is required?
We should definitely not be sitting out, and I don't think that should be the message at all from this conversation. I think that we have to have. Obviously, we need organizations that will do this. So when you say, well, you're saying organizing, but what does that mean? Well, we need organizations, and I understand, and understand where you're coming from. But we have to point out that part of the problem is also those labor leaders who tell you, can you edit that out because I don't want to present a challenge. Well, there you go. You just said that how nobody's accepting that it's going to be easy. Well, there are some leaders who don't want to make it difficult for themselves because their own lives will be difficult if they really pose a challenge in the way that they need to. So they are not going to be doing this. So in other words,
I'm so fat. Brendan, you're not. It's tight around the.
It is important to acknowledge that we are not going to be able to do this, as you're saying. Give me a sort of blueprint. Tell me how to do it. What are the ABCs? How do that whole thing remains unstarted unless we have organizations that are willing to understand that is what it takes. It takes you to be a real force that that just really antagonizes the ruling class, understands who you are, because that is what it will take to win over these working people, many of whom will actually end up being more and more attracted to right populism. And in fact, there's a real danger in the midterm elections. It's really not clear at all how the Democrats are going to avoid a serious debacle unless they actually get their act together, which I don't expect. I don't have a perspective that they will, but that's the point. I mean, that's how much room there is for right populism. So we have to, in terms of, how do we get this started? We will need organizations to take the kind of approach.
Right populism. This is why Tucker Carlson is so popular right now. Tucker Carlson didn't just get on Fox News. Tucker Carlson has been on Fox News literally for years since he left CNN. And a lot of people don't know that he used to be on CNN. And he wasn't like this at all. He was on a show called Crossfire. Then he went to Fox News. He's been on Fox News. And just the last, 4 years, his rise. What also happened during that time? The rise of right populist Donald Trump. And so when leftists say the Obama administration, the Democrats, is what got us Donald Trump, that's what we're talking about. There's this big just Grand Canyon style opening that the Democratic Party has left open. Left workers, they used to represent workers, just left that behind for a right populist to come in. And that's just what happened in 2020, and it's 2016, and it's likely to happen in 2024.
That, unfortunately, Socialist Alternative is the only organization that has taken, which is that you understand that being independent means actually being in the face of the Democratic Party, and every single day this organization will be attacked. We will come under major assault, but we will power through that because we don't expect that anything can change just through one election cycle. And that doesn't mean we not fight to win. I mean, I think we are, Socialist Alternative and I are in a good position to say honestly that we fight to win, because we have won every election to city council and we just defeated the recall. But the point is, the reason we have won, ironically, is precisely because we don't think about it as how do we win in this election cycle. Every election campaign has been, how do we actually build the struggle right now? Those are the kind of organizations we need. And I'm sorry, I don't have a simple answer for you, Brianna, in the sense that, I can't say that, Socialist Alternative will do this. We want to be part of forming a new political organization for the working class, but we cannot do it alone. So we do need other other organizations, labor unions, to do this. But if the labor leaders are not willing to do this, then we need the rank and file to take on the mantle. And that is where our conversation about strike actions comes up, because we need rank and file union members to really experience their own power, to experience, to understand how they actually get organized and win victories, because the question of a political party comes out of that struggle. So unfortunately, there is no simple answer to what you're saying, but it's also not impossible, and it does need to be done. But the starting point, as I said, is to reject the Democratic Party and to also understand.
That's it. I love how she keeps articulating that that's the starting point. Like, this is non-negotiable. I love that about how she is answering this. This is non-negotiable. The starting point is not the Democratic Party.
Understand that the leaders who are not willing to take on the Democratic
That
Party
left no opening for, what about, no Democratic Party at all.
and the ruling class, they are active obstacles to this project of a new party.
And you also have seen, like with the teachers' strikes in, was it West Virginia and Oklahoma, they defied the union leadership. They struck in defiance of the leadership.
Absolutely. That's a very crucial example.
What would you say to a Nina Turner character, or a Nina Turner type, or a Marianne Williamson type running as a third party in 2024, including potentially on like the forward party line?
That is not about this election cycle. This is the problem with Bernie. I mean, how much money did Bernie raise? It's quite a bit. And where
this is why we can't get, this is what I'm saying, like, the left love to say, I don't participate in duopoly, fuck the duopoly, break the duopoly because you didn't vote for it, but your approach, the way you discuss it, the way you think about politics is still in the duopoly framing. And it's with this last
it was a 10-year battle.
What would you say to a Nina Turner character, or a Nina Turner
when
type?
He says it's not about this election? Like, it's not about the next coming election. Do you understand? Like, this is the part that's so hard to wrestle out of any conversation with people who are still invested in the duopoly. Like, this is not the point. People before the next election and people after the next election are going to be starving. People before the election and people after the election are going to be getting evicted. You see, it's a completely different approach.
Type, or a Marianne Williamson type running as a third party in 2020.
The only people who is saying, let me just say, there's no person part of the proletariat that's saying Marianne Williamson. And the managerial class needs to stop pushing Marianne Williamson on the proletariat.
2024, including potentially on like the forward party line.
That is not about this election cycle. This is the problem with Bernie. I mean, how much money did Bernie raise? It's quite a bit. And where did it all go? Nowhere.
Right.
We're not going to impose significant.
This conversation depicts so much of what's happening. It's that the revolutionists, these two here, are engaging the reformist side and saying, hey, this is the strategy, this is what you must do. And essentially the reformists, who all seen this shit, are just gonna go la 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 la, put their fingers in their ears. If you're not talking about a strategy that's in the confines of the regular electoralism, they just can't understand that.
significant change within an election cycle. This is a long fight. I go back to Syriza. It was a 10-year battle before they achieved power.
Well, you both supported Bernie Sanders, so would you support a candidacy like that?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that I supported Bernie. I did vote for him in the primary, in the Democratic primary, but I've voted Green Party since 2000. I've never voted for a Democrat. And yes, of course, I mean, voting in the primary for Bernie was the obvious choice, but I had never had any illusions about Bernie Sanders.
Well, in this hypothetical I'm presenting, that these candidates wouldn't be running as a Democrat. They would be running as a Green Party candidate or as a Forward Party candidate.
I can't speak for them, but I mean, and I know Nina not well, but have done a few events with her. I mean, I think, and look what happened in Nina's campaign. She fully understands what defiance of the Democratic Party establishment, even within the party, entails, because she was really defeated by an organized effort by the Democratic Party hierarchy. So, yeah, I mean, we have to understand that this hierarchy is deeply hostile to any kind of real change. It's why they selected Biden. Biden's candidacy was a wash. And then they reached out frantically and got Michael Bloomberg. And then that didn't work. And then Obama and the machine essentially got everyone to drop out so that it had to be Biden. But, Biden never had any real support without this kind of corporate money and the power of Pelosi and Schumer's, that they're the funnel for this money to the anointed candidates. And they hold it like a big stick over figures like AOC. And they use it. And Bernie knows it. Bernie knows that if he were to defy the Democratic Party leadership, he would no longer be in the Senate, in the same way that George McGovern was turned on by the Democratic Party leadership in '72. And then when he went on to hold hearings on the animal ag industry, they drove him out of the Senate. So internally, they understand how brutal and ruthless the Democratic Party machine is, and that if they're going to work within it, in essence, they're going to have to sell their soul.
Oh, wow.
Now to Scandinavia. Well, Bernie Sanders says,
look at countries in Scandinavia.
Oh, wait,
Everybody in those countries
let me hear
has
this commercial.
healthcare is a human right.
Oh,
this
is what's that guy's name?
All those countries are ardently pro-free trade and rely heavily on the free market.
Some people in the US associate the Nordic model with some sort of socialism.
Oh, God. Never mind.
And if, again, the candidate, like the two that this article brings up and that I'm using as the examples here, neither are elected. Neither of them are in Congress.
Right.
So
but Brianna, this candidate is not going to achieve political power or be elected in this election cycle. And we have to think beyond the election cycle. It takes years to build.
It is so hard. It is so hard this is what I was describing, to think past the next election cycle. Because you've been trained in this. You understand? You've been trained in this sort of tempo of an election. Like, you have to get out of that framework. And it's so hard to get reformish and the managerial class out of that. It's one of the hardest things I think there is.
Build and organize effective resistance movements. So it becomes, as Kshama said, a vehicle to raise the consciousness.
Right. That's what I'm saying, Professor Hedges. I feel like we're a little bit caught in a cycle, because I fully accept that this candidate might not win. I accept that this candidate is not, that might flake out at the end. I accept that a candidate.
It's not might. It is. It is not might.
Who is part of the system might be more likely to flake out. And so I'm presenting, this is what we've got right now. Well, Kshama says we shouldn't sit this one out, that we shouldn't disengage from the electoral cycle. Okay. Well, then what should we do? I hear your cautious warnings about all of the things we could trip over, but this is the moment where I feel like the left should be strategizing about what the best possible options are, because we are going to be presented, likely, according at least to this.
Right, but they're saying the best possible options for what? For just the next election? This is where we're missing in the conversation. You're trying to narrow down an answer about the next election, and we're saying this is not just about the next election.
To this reporting 2 years out that someone's going to make a run for it. And I would like the left to be able to choose someone that is the best person to make the run, that our goals are clear, even if it's that the person isn't going to win, that they are going to be able to mobilize folks and shift them into an organization, the likes of which both of you are describing, and which I agree it is important. But it feels like we're a little bit caught in a circle of saying, yes, I agree that this might not all work, but so therefore we shouldn't make any kind of effort. No, we shouldn't sit it out. So, what are we saying? What do we do with the fact that part of this, to Kshama's point, is electoral?
Well,
what do we do with that?
I agree with Kshama. I don't sit out elections. But I think we have to look at the election process as the way Kshama does, as part of a long process, and a process that has goals outside of simply voting.
So what does that mean for 2022 and 2024?
You see how she just can't get the framing here. You can't get it, or Bree is not getting it here. That's the feeling I'm getting, because I completely get what they're saying, but I'm getting the vibe of frustration here from Bree, as if they haven't already addressed the question when they have. It's just that they haven't addressed it in the way that you understand it in the framing that you've been conditioned in. They've already answered this.
Affirmatively. What does that mean?
I wanted to pick up your hypothetical, but just on Chris not staying out of elections, I just wanted to point out to your viewers that actually Chris was the first public figure by far to reach out to us. I didn't reach out to him. He reached out to me and said, I want to support your campaign. This was way back in 2013 when nobody was touching us with a 10-foot pole, and they acted like, oh, these are some crazy young socialists who have, where did they come from? And Chris supported us publicly. And that's the kind of understanding we need on the left, that when there are small organizations or groups of individuals who are willing to take on that battle, that we come and stand up for them, just like we have to stand up for Starbucks workers and Amazon workers unionizing. But just going back to your hypothetical for a second, Brianna, you're saying that we seem to be stuck in a circle here. We all agree on all of these things. Okay, but then what? The hypothetical of Nina Turner. You know what? The answer to your question you have already given yourself, because you did that excellent interview on the ground in the last days of Nina Turner's election, when you were interviewing people who came to that church, remember? And you were talking to individuals there who, as it turned out from your question and answer, it was very clear that these were ordinary working people. I think all the people you spoke to were Black working class people who strongly supported $15 an hour, strongly supported Medicare for all kinds of progressive agenda that we would all agree with. And they were all strong Bernie supporters. But you know what? From what you yourself from what your interview pointed out, most of them didn't actually know Nina Turner stood for those things. And that is where it comes down to you. So you want to talk about a hypothetical of Nina Turner running? Then, well, the first thing Nina Turner needs to do is to learn the bitter lessons from why she lost to the Democratic establishment in her election. Yes, as Chris said, the Democratic machinery came hard on her. But what was also missing, what was also a problem, is that she did not actually present the agenda and fight for it. Like,
That's exactly what we said. Right, Savvy? Savvy did an impression of me, and she did that where how I lean into the mic. She did it. So Savvy has me down. Are you still here, Savvy, in the comments? I don't know if she's still here. But yeah, so yeah, I do that. She had me down in that impression, that impersonation. But anyway, let me go back to this. I forget the point that I was just gonna make. So let me jog my point memory here.
To the Democratic establishment in her election. Yes, as Chris said, the Democratic machinery came hard on her. But what was also missing, what was also a problem, is that she did not actually present the agenda and fight for it. Like, when you're running for working people, you are, even if you are very hesitant to bring up those issues as she was, they're still going to attack you. See, this is the logic here that a lot of people on the left miss, that just because you don't give full-throated fight for working class demands doesn't mean that the Democrats are not going to attack you. We hear this every time.
Right. So why aren't you giving full-throated demands? And that's what Nina was doing. And that's what RBN has described of her campaign. They're going to attack you anyway. So why are you turning your back on BDS? They're going to attack you anyway. So why are you running away from your socialist principles? They're going to attack you anyway. So why are you running away from defund the police? This is what Kshama is describing here. And what we described in a different way is that you're not talking the same way you were talking, Nina. And she's describing it. You didn't give it a full-throated effort. And Kshama talked about this earlier too when she says, what was the, if I can remember. Let me play it and see if I can remember.
Every time, oh, Kshama, don't be so provocative because they'll come after you. Well, do you think that if I was a little bit less provocative, they wouldn't come after me? They absolutely would. What would change is not that they wouldn't come after me. What would change is their ability to crush me. So instead,
you hear that shit? This I didn't even. I don't know how I skipped over this part, but this is, to me, is the gem so far of this stream here.
They're still going to attack you. See, this is the logic here that a lot of people on the left miss. That just because you don't give full-throated fight for working class demands doesn't mean that the Democrats are not going to attack you. We hear this every time. Oh, Kshama, don't be so provocative because they'll come after you. Well, do you think that if I was a little bit less provocative, they wouldn't come after me? They absolutely would. What would change is not that they wouldn't come after me. What would change is their ability to crush me.
Right. Now, let me play it out if this is what she's saying. The ability to crush him. If I'm half-assed saying shit, I'm not full-throated representing the proletariat. Some of the attacks they say could land because I'm just floating in the sea of moderation. But if I'm like, no, full-throated, screaming it, using the language, very militant. It's the difference in using defund the police and reform the police. If that makes sense. I'll break it down in a second because I do want to get to some super chats because I did tag them, so I'm not gonna miss them this time, but I haven't hit them yet. Let me go hit this one first. I sincerely, humbly wish leftist actual progressives overtly make it clear to the Democrats we will undermine them via third party, independent, and even not vote in their primaries and general election. Absolutely. And thank you for that super chat. And I don't know if those are letters or a name, but it's AJF Milan. AJF Milan. Thank you. Here's another one here. Comp, she makes her money reporting on election cycles. That's why she can't understand it. It's a marathon, not a sprint. First step, Bree, stop voting for Dems. Next, local electoral third-party victories. I love how you add the local part because that's key, and that's something that Zoya always pushes. Organize locally, get out there locally, because that's the roots. You know what I'm saying? Like you think we're gonna have a great national movement without having great local movements first? There's an order. I think. Let me make sure I didn't miss any other super chat here because I'm known for skipping over them. or not seeing them. Let's listen if there's any other gems here.
So instead, what do I have on my side? It is to mobilize working class support and to make fighters out of them to stand up for our election. So that's what I'm saying. The first lesson we need to learn from the Nina Turner defeat is that it does not help keep the assault from the Democratic Party out if you don't do a full-throated fight for your demand. So instead, her campaign should have been shouting from the rooftops, we stand up for $15 an hour for Medicare for all. The Democratic Party elite and their candidate, my opponent, is not going to deliver those things. Yes, she is Black like I am, but she represents corporate interests. If you're sick and tired of corporate interests, then you should support my campaign, and let's launch this organization for 15 or whatever, as we did. In our first campaign, we launched 15 now. And so even if we had lost, we would have continued fighting on those demands.
Kshama, would Socialist Alternative ever run a candidate on the national level?
I mean, whether we do or not will depend on what openings there are, and also what our ability is. I mean, we are a relatively small organization. We're a Marxist organization, and I can tell you, just from 8 years of experience, the only way you can actually achieve what we have achieved, and we have a tremendous record. And I don't say it as self-praise by any means. This is important for the left to share. In fact, the message of why we have won the victories we have won is crucially important, because there is virtually no other example, or maybe no other example in current time of being able to accomplish this. But the only way we have been able to do this being not selling out an inch, and yet not getting marginalized or isolated, and not getting defeated. That the only way you can achieve is if you have a very, very strong political organization that is rooted in the working class, that is serious about political analysis, and understands both the long-term strategy of what it takes to win victories and not sell out, and also the tactics for every campaign. That takes a lot out of the organization. And so we're really not in a position to say right now if Socialist Alternative would be able to do that or not. But what we do want to do, and that is why I'm speaking so strenuously right now, what we do want to do is share the example, share the lessons of what we have done in Seattle, in order to inspire a broader group of people, workers, community members, whoever sees that this is the right way to go, for us to be able to do it in a bigger way. I mean, what we need is, for example, for rank and file union members of the California Nurses Association, who are right now fighting for Medicare for all in California, we need a political uprising to inform the debate and say that Gavin Newsom and the Democratic establishment is not going to give you Medicare for all in California. So stop having illusions in them. It doesn't matter how hard you fight, they're not going to let you win it. Instead, we need to mobilize working people in California to fight for this in a way that maybe is not being done right now. So, it's that kind of debate and discussion that's needed. So I don't see the debate and discussion as like a talk shop. It is important to have those clarifying discussions, because the concrete things that you are correctly concerned about, where will this political party actually come from? Well, it's going to come from that political clarity. So it is important for rank and file union members and others to talk about this.
We are having the conversation. Like this is the conversation. Yes. Like this,
I think Bree is representing the managerial class in her savior. I think it's not just Bree that's looking for a savior. I think we've been conditioned. This is what I'm talking about when I say it's not just voting red or blue that makes you part of the duopoly. It's how you're conditioned, how you approach it.
Useful to say you have to organize, but it's not really a podcast audience. It's not really, a newsy kind of audience. And it's
some are. There is an overlap. So
sure. But I think part of the frustration that I feel in my role is that I don't think it's ethical for me to get on the microphone every week and just say to people who are screaming at me, asking what they can do, to just say like organize. And there are all of these prerequisites that I'd agree to, that everyone who's smart tells me that we need before we can do anything. but we don't have those prerequisites, so I'm not sure what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the place that I'm in. And so when I see people capitalizing on historical moments, when I see the right able to spin every event from Kyle Rittenhouse to CRT to their genuine electoral benefit, when I see right-wing extremists effectively manage to take over the Republican Party, I know that the left and the right extreme, far left and the far right are different insofar as the economic interests of the far right align still
with the Republican Party.
Center right, and that there's not that there's an identity of interest there that doesn't make them feel as antagonistic to the rise of the Tea Party and those kinds of things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it does still feel frustrating that when there are these moments of sincere excitement, whether it was around force to vote, there was no that it wasn't a top-down plan, but there was a clear energy from people who were so tired of being told they'd lost every fight, and here was something that could tangibly be done by a small number of people, and it still couldn't be executed. We have, like it or not, however much we think that electoralism is particularly useful for us, an election is gonna happen. And the left is well positioned for many reasons, including Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's unpopularity, the ongoing pandemic, the increasing need socially for there to be the kind of interventions that the left is calling for. Okay. And I see an organization like Socialist Alternative, which is so compelling to me that I ran and joined it, right? And I see local successes. And I see a lot of criticisms from across the left of all of these third-party efforts. The Green Party is silly because they never are successful. Okay, well, MPP, there's all of this kind of internal mishigas that's going on. Okay, fine. And no one trusts Andrew Yang because of how he, cocked up the mayoral election and these crazy things he tweets every other day. Okay, all right. And yet, I don't see a future. I don't see who's organizing the alternative third party that everyone can be serious about. Who is, running candidates from either DSA or Socialist Alternative that can be the person of integrity that we would hope existed? Who is challenging these union leaders and aggregating the energy that exists today and funneling it into a direction that can pose a credible threat, despite the fact that union leadership isn't on board? Who is tying all of those threads together?
But it doesn't happen in a day, right? I mean, all your questions are valid, but it can't happen in a day. There's going to be a period where some of those questions are going, there is going to be frustration. We are going to need one thing we need in order to actually build the kind of mass movements we need to build is sort of the understanding that on the one hand, we need tremendous patience, but on the other hand, events can happen, 10 years worth of events can happen in one single year. I mean, just to give you an example of what you're talking about, the carpenter strike last year, nobody knew it was going to be so militant and so long lasting. I mean, and it was from start to finish, it was a rank and file led strike. At every step,
I think we can bring it to a close because they're going to keep making great points that we can all kind of give our takes on. Because some of the interview is coming back to me now that I'm watching a little more. But like, what's the overall take here? What's the overall point of the stream? I'm doing my best to keep trying to show this audience and to show people that the Democratic Party is over. We're done with them. So that's what I keep trying to do. And I think this particular episode that Bree had is a good episode because you're seeing the frustrations from her point of view, which a lot of progressives have. And I think this is why a lot of people just kind of vote for the Democratic Party. Because just think about what Breanna's saying. What do we do? What do we do? It's this conditioned way we feel that an election coming up, I need to pick somebody because we think that somebody, it really is irrelevant to me. Because in Breanna's case, and she's representing this category of people, it's not just her. what about in 2000 and what they're saying and what I'm saying too is that's really not that big of a deal. Because even if we got the person you're talking about elected, that person can't do any of the things they say they can do. That's sort of the silliness, the reason of I can't take this seriously. Like the response you're getting from like that she's getting from like Chris and Kshama is like they're kind of just passing over some of her points earlier. Is that this is not the deal you're making it to be. Having to make sure we have somebody for 2024, like our problems is beyond 2024 is what they're trying to say. And that the organizing is going to take organizing that's going to go beyond 2024. So stop focusing on 2024 and focus on the organizing so we can prepare for the next election. It's not here. Like, what's going to happen in 2024 is not going to save any of us. No one elected in 2024 is going to save anybody. That's the point here. Or the point that I believe the snags in the conversation, the frustration that you can see, clear frustration you can see in Bree, at just trying to narrow down what's happening this next time, so I could tell people is no easy answer. There is no easy answer. There's nothing that's going to be accomplished in 2 years. In 2024 is not a groundbreaking election. None of that is true. That is the response you give people. The real response, or the actual response, is this is going to take a lot of work. It's going to take years of work. It's going to take you organizing locally and we're organizing nationally, all at the same time. It's going to take you on your weekend going door to door to knock. It's going to take that for years. Because that's the real answer. That's the real answer. There is no one. Nina wasn't going to save us. Bernie wasn't going to save us. We thought that it's not going to happen. So it's not that important that we rush and find out who's running in 2024. It's not. It's not at the top of the priority to come up with something to tell people about 2024, because the problems are way beyond that. And no person, if we elected every single progressive that ran, there's still not enough. They're still not going to be able to get none of the things done. And that is the point. This is a long-term thing. It's just a matter of when are we going to start. Now, RBN is working behind the scenes. We'll be having a meeting to figure out, to narrow down those things that we're going to do. And we'll, tell everybody and let everybody know. And if you want to help, if you want to do your own thing, if what we're doing jogs an ideal in you, great. But this is how it's going to, this is literally just the beginning of years of planning and revolution. And people who are conditioned in electoral politics just cannot get that. What do you mean the person I'm getting? Because every time I'm told that the person I'm voting for is going in is going to change things immediately, that is a lie. That is not going to happen. So again, I'm going to end it there because I feel like if I keep playing this, I could keep going. And I was supposed to end at 2 hours. It's 2.5 hours. So I'm going to end it there. And maybe if it's that great of a conversation, I'll listen to it offline, not during the stream. If it's that great, maybe I'll have to do a part 2 to this. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party is not the way to go. and they're severely putting their boots on the neck of the third party. So that's going to be extremely hard. No avenue we have, whether through the Democratic Party or through the third party, is going to affect change in 2024. No strategy we have is going to do that. Get out of elections. We're electing people that's doing instant change. We see with the squad that is not the case. Not the case. Oops. I was just going to click on your last comment, Zoya, and then it updated. All right. So this is going to bring this stream to an end. Let me do a quick like check here. Let me see. What am I supposed to be doing here? All right. Quick like check. 424 likes. That's great. Awesome. Let's push that to 450. That's what I say in her in Sabby's impression. She talks how I do that a lot. I do the shout out, the like shout out a lot. But yeah, so like this stream. Let's get our numbers up here so that we can get more people in the replay to get this in their notifications. So make sure you like. Let me put that up there. Make sure you like this stream. Like I said, we're at 424. Let's push that to 450. Also, subscribe to our Substack so you get notifications for when I do streams like this. A lot of you got a notification for this one. The one I did was the one I did yesterday. Substack showed that 122 people got the 122 people knew about the video because they opened the notifications that we sent. We sent it to more, but we know 122 people got our notification first before they got the YouTube notification. So it is very possible that can happen. So again, join our Substack. And also, if you're able to support us, Patreon is always the best way to support us. Also, we're still running the fundraiser. Hang on a second. We're still running the RBN fundraiser. It's $10,000. We're raised 70% of that is for housing for JB and my mom's house. So 7,000 of that 10,000 is strictly for housing. Then we have 1,000 to finally pay the person that's doing our website so we can get our website up. And then 1,000 to Camp Dada, which is a direct action event. And then one more $1,000 for Tour for the Poor when they're out in KC. That's to complete $1,000 that we're trying to raise. So if you're able to support, please do through Patreon or through our Cash Apps. And I think you see those scrolling at the bottom. Let me see. Yeah, Mutual Aid Forever. Mutual Aid Forever is where you're going to send those donations. Sorry, I don't have the update. I didn't check the update to give. The last time I checked, we're just approaching $1,300. I'm sure it's over that now. So yeah, actually, let's not play that. So I'm gonna leave you with another of my videos here. Let's see which one I want to play. Let's play this one by Fannie Lou Hammer. Now, you may have seen this if you've watched my streams for a while. I haven't played this one. I haven't played this one in a while, but if you've been a watcher of this show for a while, you've seen it. But so I'm going to leave you with this video from Fannie Lou Hammer. I won't be coming back after the stream. The stream will end. Thank you for joining me on this Saturday for this special stream of You Left Shit Out. The Democratic Party is not the way to go. That's all. That's the last thing I'm going to leave you with. And thank you for joining. You Left Shit Out.
Mississippi is still a very rough place. People is not just walking up like they used to do in the past, walking out, shooting a man down or getting maybe 200 or 300 people carrying you out and lynching you, but it's in a more settled way. They can let you starve to death, not give you jobs. These are some of the things that's happening right now in Mississippi. See, Mississippi is not actually Mississippi's problem. Mississippi is America's problem. Because if America wanted to do something about what has been going on in Mississippi, it could have stopped by now. It wouldn't have been in the past few years between 40 and 50 churches bombed and burned. You see, and this lead me to say, all of the burning and bombing that was done to us and the houses, nobody never said too much about that, and nothing was done. But let something be burned, by a black man, and then, my God, you see, the flag is drenched with our blood. Because, you see, so many of our ancestors was killed because we have never accepted slavery. We had to live on it, but we've never wanted it. So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance to be young men, respected as a man, as we know this country was built on the black backs of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either, because we gonna tear it up. That's what they saying. And people ought to understand that. I don't see why they don't understand that. They know what they've done to us. All across this country, they know what they've done to us. This country is desperately sick, and man is on the